12-year-old Marcus Chen had exactly 2.50 in his pocket, a crumpled photo of Lewis Hamilton, and the worst plan in motorsport history. But sometimes the worst plans lead to the most incredible stories. In less than 24 hours, this desperate fan hiding behind concrete barriers at Silverstone would become the youngest driver ever to start a Formula One race. His secret? A father's hidden legacy, a chance meeting with the right person, and the kind of courage that only comes when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. This is the true story of how a boy's impossible dream became racing's greatest miracle and changed Formula One forever. Marcus Chen pressed his back against the cold concrete barrier and tried to make himself invisible. His heart hammered so loud, he was sure the security guard would hear it. The man in the yellow vest walked past, talking into his radio about crowd control at gate 7. Marcus counted to 10, then peeked around the corner. The Mercedes garage was right there. So close he could smell the rubber and fuel. So close he could hear the mechanics talking about tire pressure and wing angles. But it might as well have been on the moon. Marcus looked down at the crumpled photo in his sweaty palm. Lewis Hamilton, winning his first championship, arms raised high, helmet off. The biggest smile in the world. Marcus had carried this picture for 3 years. Through the funeral, through the nights when Nai cried and thought he couldn't hear, through the days when food ran out before the week ended. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. "Just see him once. Just once." The plan had taken months to figure out. Marcus spent hours watching YouTube videos of Silverstone, studying every camera angle, every security post, every gap in the fence. He memorized the guard schedules from fan forums where people complained about wait times. He learned that shift change happened at 2:30 p.m., right when most guards grabbed coffee. Now it was 2:32 p.m. on Saturday of the British Grand Prix weekend. Practice was over. Lewis would be back soon for his team meeting. This was his only chance. Marcus was small for 12. That's what everyone said. Small and too skinny, with black hair that stuck up no matter what Nai did to it. But being small meant he could fit places other people couldn't, like the gap behind the Mercedes hospitality unit that he'd spotted in a drone video some fan posted online. He took a deep breath and ran. His sneakers slapped against the asphalt as he sprinted between two trailers. A mechanic glanced up from his toolbox but looked right through him. Kids weren't supposed to be back here, so adults didn't expect to see them. The gap was smaller than it looked in the video. Marcus had to squeeze sideways, the metal fence scraping against his ribs. His t-shirt caught on a wire and tore. But he kept pushing. Almost there. Almost. Pop. He was through. Marcus found himself in a narrow space between the hospitality unit and the team garage. He could hear voices inside talking about data and telemetry. Big words that sounded important. Through a small window, he could see computer screens full of colorful lines and numbers. This was it. The heart of the Mercedes team, where Lewis Hamilton prepared to be the fastest man in the world. Marcus crept along the wall, looking for a better view. Maybe if he climbed on that toolbox, he could see into the main garage. Maybe Lewis was already there. Maybe. A hand grabbed his shoulder. Marcus spun around, his heart jumping into his throat. A security guard. He was caught. They'd call the police and Nai would have to come get him and she'd be so ashamed But the person holding his shoulder wasn't wearing a yellow security vest. It was a woman in Mercedes team clothes. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Kind eyes with little wrinkles at the corners. A name tag that said Angela. "You're not supposed to be here, kid," she said quietly. Marcus opened his mouth to explain. To apologize. To beg her not to turn him in. But no words came out. Angela studied his face for a long moment. She saw the Lewis Hamilton photo crumpled in his fist. She saw the fear in his eyes. But something else too. Something desperate and hopeful and heartbreaking all at once. "But maybe," she said, glancing around to make sure they were alone, "maybe you're exactly where you need to be." Instead of marching him to security, Angela pulled Marcus deeper into the shadows between the buildings. Away from the cameras. Away from the guards. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus," he whispered. "Well, Marcus, you picked a hell of a day to sneak into the paddock." Angela looked at him seriously. "Lewis is coming back in 10 minutes. And I'm about to do something that could get me fired." She paused and looked at the photo in his hand again. But first, you need to tell me why seeing Lewis Hamilton is worth risking getting arrested for. Marcus looked up at this stranger who could destroy his life. Or maybe, just maybe, make his biggest dream come true. He thought about Nine working double shifts at the care home. He thought about selling his dad's comic books one by one to pay for go-kart practice. He thought about the tiny TV in their flat, where he'd watched Lewis win race after race, championship after championship. He thought about the hospital 3 years ago, and the worst day of his life, and how Lewis Hamilton had somehow become the light in all that darkness. Because, Marcus said, his voice getting stronger, he's the only hero I have left. Angela's expression softened. She made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Okay, Marcus. But we're gonna do this right, and you're gonna have to trust me completely. She checked her watch. Lewis will be here in 8 minutes. That gives us just enough time for you to tell me your story. The real story. Because something tells me there's a lot more to you than just another fan trying to sneak a peek. As if summoned by her words, the sound of a car engine echoed across the paddock. The deep, powerful rumble of a Mercedes-AMG getting closer. Marcus felt his knees go weak. After 3 years of dreaming, Lewis Hamilton was about to be in the same space as him, the same air, the same moment in time. But as the engine sound grew louder, Angela's radio crackled to life. Her face went white as she listened to the message. "Marcus," she said, her voice tight with worry, "something's wrong. That's not Lewis coming back from practice." She grabbed his hand and started running toward the garage. "That's the ambulance." Angela pulled Marcus toward the main garage as the ambulance siren grew louder. Her radio crackled with urgent voices talking over each other. "Medical emergency, driver down. Team principals rushing to meetings." "What's happening?" Marcus asked, trying to keep up with her longer strides. "I don't know yet," Angela said, but her face showed she was worried. Really worried. They reached the edge of the garage where Angela could see the team gathering around computers and radios. Everyone looked scared and confused. Angela had worked for Mercedes for 15 years. She'd seen crashes and mechanical failures and all kinds of racing drama. But this felt different. "Stay right here," she told Marcus, pointing to a spot behind a stack of tires. "Don't move. Don't make a sound. I need to find out what's going on." Marcus crouched behind the tires and watched Angela walk into the garage. She moved like she belonged there, which she did. Her coveralls had oil stains, and her hands looked strong from working with tools. She wasn't just pretending to be part of the team. She really was part of it. While he waited, Marcus studied everything around him. The garage was bigger than it looked on TV. Computers everywhere showing data he didn't understand. Tools hanging in perfect rows. The smell of rubber and fuel and something else. Something that reminded him of his dad's workshop before everything changed. Angela came back 5 minutes later with a bottle of water and a sandwich wrapped in plastic. "Eat," she said, sitting down next to him. "You look like you haven't had a proper meal in days." Marcus wanted to argue, but his stomach growled so loud it gave him away. The sandwich was ham and cheese with real butter. The kind Nina used to buy before money got tight. "Lewis is sick," Angela said quietly. "Food poisoning. Bad enough that he can't drive today." Marcus stopped chewing. "He can't race?" "Not today. Maybe not tomorrow either." Angela watched his face fall. "I'm sorry, kid. I know this isn't what you came here for." Marcus felt tears starting but blinked them back. He'd learned not to cry about disappointments. There had been too many of them. "Tell me about the photo," Angela said gently. Marcus looked down at the crumpled picture still in his hand. Lewis Hamilton, with his arms raised, celebrating his first championship win in "My dad printed it for me," Marcus said. "The day after Lewis won, Dad said it proved that anyone could make it if they worked hard enough. Even someone who looked like us." "Like us?" "Mixed race. Dad was Chinese. Mum was British. They said Lewis showed the world that different could be beautiful. Different could be fast." Marcus's voice got quieter. "They died 3 years ago. Car crash." Angela felt her heart squeeze. She recognized that look in Marcus's eyes. The same lost, angry, hopeful expression she'd seen in her own mirror 25 years ago. "How old were you?" she asked. 9. "I live with Nine now." That's my dad's mom. She works at a care home and we don't have much money, but she lets me do go-karting sometimes when I can pay for it myself." "Pay for it yourself?" Marcus nodded. "I sold Dad's comic book collection, piece by piece. Some of them were worth good money. The X-Men ones especially." He took another bite of sandwich. "That's how I pay for track time at Towester Kart Club." Angela stared at him. This kid was selling his dead father's treasures to chase a racing dream. Just like she had worked 3 jobs to study engineering while supporting her family after her own father died. "What's your last name, Marcus?" "Chen." "Well, that's my dad's name. I live with Nai, so sometimes people call me Marcus Wong." That's her maiden name. Something clicked in Angela's memory. Chen. She'd heard that name before. In the Mercedes garage. Years ago. "Marcus, what did your dad do for work?" "He was an engineer. Worked on cars. Really smart cars with computers and stuff." Marcus shrugged. "I don't remember much about his job. I was pretty young." Angela's radio buzzed again. More urgent voices. The team was in crisis mode with Lewis unable to race, and their backup driver stuck in traffic somewhere. She looked at Marcus finishing his sandwich and made a decision that could end her career. "Marcus, I need to tell you something about me. Then I need you to trust me with something that sounds impossible." She sat cross-legged on the concrete floor so they were eye to eye. "My name is Angela Rodriguez. I'm from Barcelona, in Spain. When I was 12, just like you, my father died in an accident at the factory where he worked. We had no money. My mother couldn't speak English well enough to get a good job. I had to work after school to help feed my little sister." Marcus nodded. He understood about having no money and working to help family. "But I loved cars. Loved engines. Loved everything about racing. So I studied engineering at night school, while I worked during the day. It took me 8 years to get my degree. Then I moved to England to find work in motorsport." Angela pulled out her phone and showed Marcus a photo. Her younger self in Mercedes team gear, shaking hands with Lewis Hamilton. "Lewis hired me personally in 2019. I was the fastest tire changer in Formula 2. He said the team needed people who understood what it meant to fight for every opportunity." Marcus looked at the photo, then at Angela, then back at the photo. "You actually know Lewis Hamilton?" "I work with him every race weekend. Change his tires. Help set up his car. Listen to him complain about the steering wheel temperature." Angela smiled. "He's a good man, Marcus. But more than that, he remembers what it feels like to be the underdog." The radio crackled again. Angela listened, then looked at Marcus with an expression he couldn't read. "Marcus, Lewis just asked about you." "About me?" "He saw you when they wheeled him past on the stretcher. Asked who the kid with the Lewis Hamilton photo was." Angela paused. "I told him your story, about your parents, about the go-karting, about selling your dad's comics." Marcus felt dizzy. Lewis Hamilton knew he existed. "What did he say?" Angela checked her watch. The team meeting would start soon. Decisions had to be made about tomorrow's race. "He wants to meet you. But first, he wants to know something." She looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "He wants to know if you've ever driven anything faster than a go-kart." The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about Dave Morrison at the kart track. The secret practice sessions. The times when Dave let him drive the Formula Ford car when no one else was around. "Why does he want to know that?" Marcus asked. Angela's radio buzzed one more time. She listened to the message, then stood up quickly. "Because Marcus Chen, Lewis Hamilton just made the most unusual request in the history of Formula 1. And it involves you." She reached out her hand to help him up. "But first, we need to call someone named Dave Morrison. Lewis says if you're who he thinks you are, Dave will have some very interesting things to tell us about your driving." Marcus took her hand and stood up, his legs shaky with excitement and fear and disbelief. In the distance, he could hear the ambulance driving away. But the real emergency was just beginning. Angela's phone rang as they walked toward the medical center. The name on the screen made her stop walking. "Dave Morrison," she said, showing Marcus. "How does Lewis even know about your karting coach?" Marcus felt his stomach flip. Dave had made him promise never to tell anyone about the extra driving lessons. The ones where Dave let him drive the Formula Ford car after regular karting sessions ended. The ones that weren't exactly legal for a 12-year-old. "Answer it," Marcus said quietly. He's gonna find out anyway. Angela pressed the speaker button. Dave's familiar Yorkshire accent filled the space between them. Angela Rodriguez, this is unexpected. I got a message saying Lewis Hamilton wants to talk to me about Marcus Chen. Dave, it's me, Marcus said before Angela could answer. Marcus? What the hell are you doing at Silverstone? And why is the Mercedes team calling me? Dave sounded worried and confused. Please tell me you didn't do something stupid. Angela jumped in. Dave, this is gonna sound crazy, but Lewis is sick and can't race. He specifically asked about Marcus's driving experience beyond go-karts. He seems to think Marcus might be more advanced than a typical 12-year-old racer. The phone went quiet for a long moment. Oh, bloody hell, Dave finally said. Marcus, you told them about the Ford? I didn't tell them anything yet, Marcus said. But I think I'm about to have to. What Ford? Angela asked. Dave sighed heavily. Angela, you need to understand something. Marcus isn't just any kid who likes go-karts. He's the most naturally gifted driver I've seen in 30 years of coaching, including when I worked with Lewis back in his karting days. Angela stopped walking. You worked with Lewis Hamilton? Briefly. In 2001 when he was coming up through the ranks. But that's not important right now. Dave's voice got serious. What's important is that Marcus has been driving my Formula Ford car for 6 months, unofficially, and his lap times at Donington Park are faster than drivers twice his age. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment. He'd never meant for his secret to come out like this. How much faster? Angela asked. Put it this way, if Marcus was 16 instead of 12, every F3 team in Europe would be fighting to sign him. Angela stared at Marcus with new eyes. This wasn't just a fan who'd snuck into the paddock. This was a serious racing talent hiding behind a crumpled photograph and a shy smile. Her radio crackled again. The voice of Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the team's chief medical officer, cut through the static. All senior team members to the medical center immediately. We have a situation. Angela grabbed Marcus's hand. Come on. Whatever's happening with Lewis, you need to be there for it. They ran toward the medical center, passing confused mechanics and worried team officials. The whole paddock felt like it was holding its breath. Inside the medical center, they found chaos. Dr. Mitchell stood over Lewis, who was lying on an examination table looking pale and weak. Toto Wolff, the team principal, paced back and forth talking rapidly into his phone. Nick is still 2 hours away, Toto was saying. The M40 is completely blocked. 3-car accident and they can't clear it. Dr. Mitchell looked up from Lewis's chart. I can't clear him to drive. His blood pressure is too low and he's severely dehydrated. Racing in this condition could be dangerous. Lewis tried to sit up, but Dr. Mitchell gently pushed him back down. Boss, there has to be something we can do, Lewis said weakly. This is Silverstone, my home race. The fans are expecting. The fans will understand, Toto said. Your health comes first. That's when Lewis noticed Marcus standing next to Angela. You, he said, his voice hoarse but kind. You're the kid with my photo. Marcus nodded, suddenly unable to speak. Even sick and lying down, Lewis Hamilton was still the most famous person he'd ever seen. What's your name? Marcus Chen. He managed to whisper. Chen, Lewis repeated, like he was trying to remember something. He looked at Dr. Mitchell. Sarah, call Dave Morrison. The number should be in the team database under Youth Development Contacts. Dr. Mitchell looked confused but made the call. Within minutes, Dave's voice was on speakerphone, talking the whole room. Lewis, what's going on? Angela already called me about Marcus. Dave, I need you to tell everyone in this room exactly what Marcus can do in a race car. Don't leave anything out. Marcus felt like he might throw up. All these important people were about to hear about his secret driving sessions. Dave's voice came through clearly. Marcus Chen is the most talented young driver I've ever coached. In 6 months of unofficial training, he's mastered car control that takes most drivers years to learn. His lap times at Donington in a Formula Ford are consistently in the 117 range. Dr. Mitchell frowned. What does that mean? It means, Toto said quietly, he's faster than most professional drivers in that category. Dave continued. More importantly, Marcus has something you can't teach. Racing instinct. He understands the car, the track, the competition in a way that's almost supernatural. I've been racing and coaching for 30 years, I've never seen anything like it." The room went silent. Everyone was looking at Marcus, who wished he could disappear. Lewis struggled to sit up again, this time succeeding. "Marcus, how long have you been driving the Formula Ford?" 6 months, Marcus said quietly. "But only after regular karting sessions, when no one else was around. And you've never had an accident? Never lost control?" Marcus shook his head. "Dave says I drive like the car is part of me." Lewis looked at Dr. Mitchell, then at Toto, then back at Marcus. "I know this sounds insane," Lewis said. "But what if we applied for an emergency license?" The room erupted in voices. "Absolutely not," Dr. Mitchell said. "It's never been done," Toto said. "The insurance alone would be impossible." Someone else added, but Lewis held up his hand for quiet. "Hear me out. Marcus is small and light, which is perfect for car balance. He's obviously skilled beyond his years. And most importantly, he understands what this moment means." Lewis looked directly at Marcus. "Tell me, Marcus, if you could drive my car in tomorrow's race, would you be scared?" Marcus thought about it seriously. He thought about all the times he dreamed of this exact moment. All the nights he'd fallen asleep imagining himself on the starting grid at Silverstone. "I'd be terrified," he said honestly. "But I'd do it anyway." Lewis smiled for the first time since getting sick. "That's exactly the right answer." Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. "Lewis, even if this was medically advisable, which it isn't, paperwork alone would take weeks. What if we had someone vouch for him?" Lewis asked. "Someone with authority in motorsport?" Angela's radio crackled again. But this time, the voice on the other end made everyone in the room stop talking. "This is Eduardo Freitas, race director. I need to speak with Lewis Hamilton immediately regarding an emergency license application that just crossed my desk." Toto looked confused. "We haven't submitted any paperwork yet." Lewis winked at Marcus. "No, but Dave Morrison has. He's been preparing for this day for months, haven't you, Dave?" Dave's voice came through the speakerphone with a chuckle. "Lewis, you always were 3 steps ahead of everyone else." "Yes. I've had all of Marcus's documentation ready since his first day in the Formula Ford. Medical clearances, driving assessments, emergency contact information, everything the FIA would need for a special circumstances license." Dr. Mitchell stared at the phone. "You mean this was planned?" "Not planned," Dave said, "but prepared for. In motorsport, opportunity comes when you least expect it. The question is whether you're ready when it does." Marcus felt dizzy. Were they actually talking about him driving in Formula One?
Him?
The kid who had to sneak into the paddock just to see his hero? Lewis reached over and took the crumpled photo from Marcus's hand. "Marcus, this picture was taken 15 years ago. I was young and scared, and had no idea what I was doing. But I had people who believed in me." He handed the photo back. "Now it's my turn to believe in someone else." The radio crackled again. Eduardo Freitas' voice filled the room. "Lewis, I've reviewed the documentation. This is highly irregular, but given the circumstances and the endorsements from both Morrison and Hamilton, I'm prepared to grant a one-time emergency license pending final medical and safety checks." Marcus couldn't breathe. This wasn't really happening. It couldn't be. But then Dr. Mitchell said something that changed everything. "There's one more thing we need to discuss. Marcus, what's your father's full name?" "James Chen," Marcus said, confused by the question. "Why?" Dr. Mitchell and Angela exchanged a look that Marcus didn't understand. "Marcus," Angela said slowly, "your father didn't just work on cars. He worked on Formula One cars. He worked for Mercedes." Marcus felt the world spin around him. His father worked for Mercedes? The same team where he was standing right now? "That's impossible," he said. "Dad worked for a small engineering company. He fixed regular cars." Angela pulled out her phone and scrolled through old team photos. She stopped at one from 2021 and showed it to Marcus. "Is this your father?" Marcus stared at the screen. There was his dad, younger and smiling, wearing a Mercedes team shirt. He was standing next to a computer showing car designs that looked nothing like regular cars. "I don't understand," Marcus whispered. "Why didn't he tell me?" Dr. Mitchell sat down next to him. "Marcus, your father was Dr. James Chen. He was one of our top aerodynamics engineers. He helped design parts of the car that made Lewis's 2021 championship possible. The room went quiet. Everyone was looking at Marcus with new understanding. Toto Wolff stepped forward. James was brilliant. One of the smartest people I've ever worked with. He talked about his son all the time. Said you loved racing, but… Toto paused. We lost touch after the accident. We had no idea you were living in such difficult circumstances. Marcus felt angry, suddenly. So you all knew my dad, but nobody cared enough to check on me after he died? The words came out harsher than he meant them to. But 3 years of struggling and going hungry while his father's co-workers won championships felt unfair. Lewis spoke up from the examination table. Marcus, we tried to find you. The team set up a memorial fund in your father's name, but the lawyers couldn't locate any family members. We thought you might have moved away with relatives. I did move, Marcus said quietly. With Nai. She has a different last name. Angela nodded. That's why we lost track of you. The paperwork showed James Chen had a son, but we couldn't find anyone with that name. Dr. Mitchell pulled up more files on her computer. Marcus, this changes everything about your situation here today. As James Chen's son, you're technically still covered under the Mercedes family insurance policy. Your father made sure of that before he died. What does that mean? Marcus asked. It means, Toto said slowly, that legally you have the right to be here. And more importantly, you have insurance coverage for team activities. The implications hit everyone at the same time. The biggest barrier to letting Marcus drive, insurance and legal liability, had just disappeared. Lewis sat up straighter despite Dr. Mitchell's protests. Toto, are you thinking what I'm thinking? This is still insane, Toto said. But he was already pulling out his phone. Rebecca, I need you in the medical center immediately. Bring the family policy documents for Dr. James Chen. While they waited for the team lawyer, Angela showed Marcus more photos of his father working with the Mercedes team. In every picture, James looked happy and excited, like he was living his dream. He never told me any of this, Marcus said. I thought he just fixed broken cars at some boring job. Your father was protecting you, Dr. Mitchell said gently. Formula One is a demanding world. He probably wanted you to have a normal childhood first. Dave Morrison's voice came through the speakerphone again. Marcus, your dad called me 2 weeks before the accident. He wanted to set up proper racing lessons for you when you turned 13. Said it was time for you to learn what real racing was about. Marcus felt tears starting. His father had been planning to share his racing world, but the accident happened first. Rebecca Thompson, the team lawyer, arrived with a thick folder of documents. She spread papers across Dr. Mitchell's desk and started reading. James Chen, Mercedes employee from 2019 to 2021. Family insurance policy includes spouse Ellen Chen and minor child Marcus Chen. She looked up. The policy is still active. It covers family members for team-related activities, including emergency driving duties. Emergency driving duties? Marcus asked. Rebecca nodded. It's standard language for all team families. Usually means things like moving cars in the garage or test driving in emergencies. But technically, she paused and read more carefully. Technically, it covers any driving activity approved by team management. The room erupted in excited voices. This could actually work, Toto said. The FIA already approved the emergency license, Dr. Mitchell added. And we know he can drive, Angela said. But Lewis held up his hand for quiet. Wait, before we get carried away, we need to ask Marcus something important. Everyone turned to look at him. Marcus, forget about the insurance and the licenses and all the technical stuff. I need you to look me in the eye and tell me honestly, do you want to drive my car in tomorrow's race? Marcus thought about everything that had happened in the last hour. Finding out his father worked for Mercedes. Learning that Lewis Hamilton knew his name. Discovering that he could legally drive in Formula One. But mostly he thought about the crumpled photo in his pocket. The one his father had printed for him 3 years ago. The one that had given him hope when everything else was falling apart. More than anything, Marcus said. But I'm scared I'll mess it up. What if I crash? What if I embarrass you? What if I'm not as good as Dave thinks I am? Lewis smiled. Marcus, I've been racing for 20 years. I've won 7 world championships. And you know what? I'm scared before every single race. Fear means you understand how important this is. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. If we're really doing this, I need to do a full medical examination. Blood pressure, reflexes, vision tests, everything. And I need to call the FIA to confirm the final paperwork, Rebecca added. Plus, we need to get you fitted for a proper racing suit and helmet, Angela said. Marcus looked around at all these adults who were suddenly treating him like a real racing driver instead of a kid who'd snuck into the paddock. What about Nai? She doesn't even know where I am. Angela smiled. Already handled. Dave is driving her here right now. She should arrive in about an hour. You called my grandmother? Had to. She's your legal guardian. Plus, Dave says she needs to sign some additional forms. Angela's expression got serious. Marcus, she's going to be scared. This isn't what she expected when she woke up this morning. Lewis struggled to stand up, ignoring Dr. Mitchell's protests. Then we better make sure this is worth her worry. He walked over to Marcus and put a hand on his shoulder. Your father would be proud of you today. Not because you might drive in Formula One, but because you took a risk to chase your dreams. That's what racing is really about. Marcus felt the weight of everything that was happening. In 6 hours, he'd gone from sneaking into the paddock to potentially driving in the British Grand Prix. But as Dr. Mitchell started setting up her medical equipment, Angela's radio crackled with an urgent message that made everyone freeze. All team members be advised. We have a situation developing in the paddock. Someone leaked news about the emergency driver situation. Media are gathering outside the medical center demanding answers. Toto cursed under his breath. How did word get out already? Rebecca looked worried. If this becomes a media circus before we're ready, it could complicate everything. Lewis looked at Marcus seriously. Kid, things are about to get very intense very quickly. The whole world is going to be watching. Are you sure you're ready for that? Marcus thought about the photo in his pocket. About his father working in secret to help Lewis win championships. About 3 years of struggling and dreaming and hoping for something better. I've been ready my whole life, he said. I just didn't know it yet. Dr. Mitchell smiled and handed him a hospital gown. Then let's get you medically cleared to make history. But as Marcus headed toward the examination room, Angela grabbed his arm. Marcus, there's something else about your father that Lewis wanted you to know. Something about his last day at the track. But first we need to see if you can actually handle the car. She looked at Lewis, who nodded grimly. Because if you can't, none of this matters anyway. Dr. Mitchell finished Marcus's medical exam in record time. Blood pressure perfect. Reflexes sharp. Vision better than most adults. Heart rate elevated. But that was expected for someone about to drive in Formula One. Medically, you're cleared, she announced. Your body can handle the physical stress of racing. But Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. Being physically ready and being mentally ready were two different things. Angela led him to the garage, where mechanics were preparing Lewis's backup car. The Mercedes W115 looked bigger up close than it did on TV. Black and silver, sleek as a shark, covered in sensors and cameras. This is it, Angela said. The fastest car in the world. Are you ready to see if it fits? Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice to work properly. The mechanics lifted him into the cockpit. It was tighter than he expected, like being inside a space capsule. Screens everywhere showing numbers and graphs he didn't understand. A steering wheel that looked more like a video game controller. How does it feel? Asked Tony, the chief mechanic. Like I'm about to pilot a rocket ship, Marcus said honestly. Tony laughed. That's actually not far from the truth. They spent 20 minutes adjusting the seat, the pedals, the mirrors, everything had to be perfect. In Formula One, even a small discomfort could cause a crash at 200 miles per hour. While the mechanics worked, Toto Wolff took a phone call that made his face go pale. That was the FIA, he announced. The media leak has created a problem. They want Marcus to do a full driving assessment before they'll approve him for the race. What kind of assessment? Angela asked. 20 laps at Silverstone, full race speed, with officials timing every sector. Toto looked serious. If he can't match within 5 seconds of Lewis's qualifying time, they'll withdraw the emergency license. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Lewis's qualifying times were what professional drivers spent years trying to achieve. 5 seconds, Dave Morrison's voice came through the radio. That's almost impossible for someone with Marcus's experience level. But Lewis, who had been listening from the medical center, disagreed. Dave, you said Marcus was doing 117s at Donington in the Formula Ford. What's the track record there? 115.8, Dave said after a pause. So Marcus is already within 2 seconds of the track record in a much slower car. Lewis's voice got excited. Angela, pull up the data from James's final setup notes. Angela looked confused. Lewis, those files are archived. We haven't touched them since James died. I know. But there's something in those notes that Marcus needs to see. Angela typed on her computer while Marcus waited in the car. After a few minutes, she found what Lewis was looking for. Here it is. Dr. James Chen's final engineering report, submitted the day before. She stopped reading and looked at Marcus with surprise. What? Marcus asked. Your father's last project wasn't just about aerodynamics. He was working on a special car setup for young drivers. Specifically for young drivers at Silverstone. Toto walked over to read the screen. I remember this now. James said he wanted to create a setup that would help smaller, lighter drivers compete with larger, more experienced ones. Marcus felt chills run down his spine. He was thinking about me? More than thinking, Angela said, scrolling through the data. Look at this. He modeled the entire setup around a driver who was 5 foot 105 pounds. Marcus, what's your height and weight? 5'1" and 98 pounds. Angela stared at the screen. Your father designed this car setup specifically for you. 3 years ago. The garage went quiet. Everyone was looking at Marcus like they were seeing a ghost. Lewis's voice crackled through the radio. Angela, is that setup still available? All of James's work is archived in the system. We could implement it in about 30 minutes. Do it, Toto said immediately. If James Chen designed a setup for his son, then his son should drive it. While the mechanics worked to change the car setup, Marcus climbed out of the cockpit. His legs were shaky and his hands were trembling. This is too much, he said to Angela. My dad designed a car for me. Before he even knew I could drive? Angela sat down next to him on a toolbox. Marcus, your father talked about you constantly. He said you watched every race, studied every lap time, asked questions about aerodynamics that impressed him. He knew you had the passion. He was just waiting for you to grow old enough to handle the speed. But he died before he could teach me. Maybe. Or maybe this is him teaching you right now. A commotion outside made everyone look up. Through the garage opening, they could see a small woman with gray hair arguing with security guards. That's Nai, Marcus said. Dave Morrison appeared behind her, carrying paperwork and looking stressed. Let them through, Toto called to security. Nai rushed into the garage and immediately started speaking rapid Mandarin to Marcus. He answered in the same language, trying to explain what was happening. Finally, she switched to English. Marcus, these people say you want to drive in the Grand Prix? Are they crazy? Nai. It's complicated. But yes, and Dad used to work here. He designed parts of this car. Nai looked around the garage with new eyes. At the Mercedes logos. At the sophisticated equipment. At the respectful way everyone was treating her grandson. James worked here? She asked quietly. Dave stepped forward. Mrs. Wong, your son-in-law was one of the most respected engineers in Formula One. The team has been looking for Marcus for 3 years. Nai's eyes filled with tears. He never told us. We thought he worked for a small company. He was protecting you, Dr. Mitchell said gently. Formula One can be dangerous. He wanted Marcus to have a normal childhood first. But now Marcus wants to race. Now Marcus has the chance to honor his father's work, Lewis said through the radio. Mrs. Wong, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Your grandson has extraordinary talent. With your permission, I'd like to help him use it. Nai looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then she surprised everyone by smiling. James always said Marcus had racing in his blood. I thought he meant watching on TV. She turned to Toto. What do you need me to sign? The next hour was a blur of paperwork, safety briefings, and final car adjustments. Marcus was fitted with a proper racing suit, fireproof underwear, and a helmet that had belonged to Lewis as a junior driver. As the sun began to set over Silverstone, the car was ready. Marcus's father's setup was loaded into the computer. The track was cleared for the assessment. Marcus climbed back into the cockpit. This time for real. Remember, Angela said through his headset, Your father spent months calculating every detail of this setup. Trust his work. Trust your instincts. And trust that you belong here. The engine fired up behind him. The sound was like nothing he'd ever heard. Pure power waiting to be unleashed. As Marcus rolled out of the garage toward the track, Lewis's voice came through the radio one final time. Marcus, there's one more thing your father wanted you to know about his last day. Something I promised him I'd tell you if this moment ever came. Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he approached the starting line. Your father's final engineering report wasn't just about car setups. It included a message. A message for you. Marcus reached the starting line and stopped, waiting for the signal to begin his assessment laps. What did it say? Marcus asked. Lewis's voice was emotional as he read from the archived file. It said, "For Marcus, when you're ready to fly, love Dad." The signal light turned green. Marcus pressed the accelerator and shot forward into his destiny. The Mercedes W115 shot forward like a rocket. Marcus had never felt acceleration like this. The car pressed him back into his seat as they went from 0 to 100 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. "Bloody hell," he whispered into his radio. Angela's voice crackled back. "Language, Marcus. Your grandmother is listening." Despite his nerves, Marcus smiled. Even in the fastest car on Earth, Angela was still looking out for him. The first corner approached faster than anything he'd experienced. In go-karts, he had time to think about his racing line. In the Formula Ford, he could plan his braking point. But in Formula One, everything happened at lightning speed. His father's setup felt perfect. The car turned exactly when he wanted it to. The brakes responded like extensions of his feet. The steering was so precise he could place the car within inches of where he intended. "Sector 1 complete," Angela announced. "Time is..." "Wait, that can't be right." "What's wrong?" Marcus asked, as he flew down the back straight. "Nothing's wrong, you're just really fast." In the garage, Toto Wolff stared at the timing screens in disbelief. Marcus's first sector time was only 1.2 seconds slower than Lewis's pole position lap from last year. "Dave," Toto said into the radio, "what exactly have you been teaching this kid?" Dave Morrison's voice came back nervous, but proud. "Everything I know. But this is beyond what I taught him. This is pure instinct." Marcus completed his first lap and crossed the start-finish line. The garage erupted in cheers. "Lap 1 complete," Angela announced. "Time, 1 minute." Marcus nearly lost concentration. "That's fast, right?" "Marcus," Lewis's voice came through weakly from the medical center. "That's faster than I've ever gone on my first lap in a new car, and you've never driven here before." The second lap felt even better. Marcus was learning the track with every corner. His father's setup was giving him confidence to push harder, brake later, carry more speed through the turns. By lap 5, he'd found a rhythm. The car felt like an extension of his body. Every input he made was translated perfectly into speed and precision. "Lap 5, 1:27.1, Angela announced. "Marcus, you're getting faster." In the Mercedes hospitality unit, Nai watched the timing screens with tears in her eyes. She didn't understand all the numbers, but she could see the amazement on everyone's faces. "Is he doing well?" she asked Dr. Mitchell. "Mrs. Wang, your grandson is doing something that shouldn't be possible. He's driving like he's been in Formula One for years. On track." Marcus was entering a zone he'd only experienced a few times before. The world slowed down around him. He could see the racing line clearly, predict how the car would behave, feel exactly how much grip the tires had. "Lap 10, 1:25.8, Angela said, her voice getting more excited with each announcement. Marcus was now within 3 seconds of Lewis's qualifying time. The FIA officials watching from race control were speechless. "This is unprecedented," said Eduardo Freitas. "I've never seen a driver adapt this quickly to Formula One." By lap 15, Marcus felt like he'd been driving the Silverstone circuit his entire life. He knew exactly where to brake for every corner, exactly how much speed he could carry, exactly when to get on the power. Lap 15. 1:24.2, Angela announced. "Marcus, you're now within 2 seconds of the target." But Marcus wasn't thinking about targets anymore. He was thinking about his father, about the countless hours James had spent designing this setup, about the message, For Marcus, when you're ready to fly. I'm ready, Dad, Marcus whispered as he started lap 18. That's when everything changed. Marcus found another level of speed he didn't know existed. The car responded to his thoughts before he even moved his hands. He was flying around Silverstone, dancing on the edge of control, but never crossing the line. Lap 18, 1:22.9. Angela announced, her voice barely containing her excitement. The garage went silent. That lap time was faster than Lewis's qualifying time, faster than the pole position, faster than should be possible for someone in their first Formula One session. Check that time, Toto said quietly. Angela checked her screens 3 times. Confirmed. 1:22.9. That's faster than pole position. In the medical center, Lewis tried to sit up despite Dr. Mitchell's protests. Did she say what I think she said? Marcus just broke the track record, Dr. Mitchell said in amazement. On track, Marcus completed his 19th lap even faster. The car felt alive underneath him, responding to every tiny input. He was no longer driving the car. He was becoming one with it. Lap 19. 1:22.4. Angela announced. New track record. The FIA officials were frantically checking their timing equipment. This was impossible. A 12-year-old in his first ever Formula One session was setting times that professional drivers couldn't match. As Marcus started his final assessment lap, rain began to fall. Marcus, Angela's voice was urgent. There's light rain starting. The track is getting slippery. Take it easy on this last lap. But Marcus felt the rain and smiled. Rain was his specialty. All those wet practice sessions with Dave at the local track. All those times when they couldn't afford proper rain tires and had to make do with worn-out one. I've got this, Marcus said confidently. He attacked the final lap with controlled aggression. Where other drivers would slow down in the rain, Marcus found grip that shouldn't exist. He knew exactly how to balance the car on the edge between speed and safety. Watching from the garage, Angela held her breath as Marcus flew through the final sector. The rain was getting heavier, making the track treacherous. Come on, Marcus, she whispered. Marcus crossed the finish line and immediately felt the car slide slightly as he lifted off the throttle, but he controlled it perfectly, bringing the Mercedes safely back to the pit lane. Time for lap 20. Angela announced, her voice shaking with emotion. 1:21. The garage erupted. Mechanics who had worked in Formula One for decades were cheering like children. Toto Wolff had tears in his eyes. Even the hardened FIA officials were applauding. Marcus brought the car to a stop in the pit box and turned off the engine. For a moment, the only sound was the rain pattering on the garage roof. Then Angela's voice cut through the silence. Marcus Chen, you are officially cleared to race in tomorrow's British Grand Prix. Marcus pulled off his helmet and looked around at all the faces staring at him with wonder and respect. These weren't looking at a kid who'd snuck into the paddock anymore. They were looking at a racing driver. Lewis's voice crackled over the radio one more time. Marcus, your father would be so proud. But there's one more thing he wanted you to know about tomorrow's race. Something I promised him I'd tell you if you ever made it this far. Marcus was climbing out of the car, still shaking from the adrenaline of his impossible lap times. What is it? He asked. Tomorrow isn't just about driving fast. Tomorrow is about racing wheel to wheel with 19 other drivers who will do everything they can to beat you. Your father's setup will help, but the real test is how you handle pressure when everyone is watching. Lewis paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was emotional. But Marcus, if today proved anything, it's that you have something that can't be taught or engineered. You have the heart of a champion. As Marcus walked toward the garage where Nai was waiting with the biggest smile he'd ever seen, Angela pulled him aside. There's one more secret about your father's final day that Lewis wanted you to know. Something that will change how you think about tomorrow's race. Marcus looked at her, exhausted but exhilarated from the most incredible 20 laps of his life. Can it wait until after I hug my grandmother? He asked. Angela smiled. Actually, it's about why your father was working so late that night, and why his final message to you was so important. The rain continued to fall as Marcus walked toward his destiny, not knowing that the biggest revelation was still to come. Marcus woke up in the small hotel room that Mercedes had booked for him. And Nai. For a moment, he thought everything had been a dream. Then he saw the Mercedes team gear hanging in the closet, and his racing suit laid out for today's race, the British Grand Prix. He was actually going to start in Formula One. His phone showed dozens of messages from Dave Morrison, classmates who'd seen the news, and even people he didn't know. The story had gone global overnight. 12-year-old to race in British Grand Prix was trending on every social media platform. But Marcus barely looked at his phone. He was thinking about Angela's words from last night. The final secret about his father's last day. They'd been too tired to discuss it after his qualifying session. But now, sitting in the gray morning light with rain pattering against the window, Marcus needed to know. He arrived at the track 2 hours before the race. The paddock was buzzing with energy, but it felt different from yesterday. More intense, more focused, race day energy. Angela met him at the garage entrance with a serious expression. "Ready to hear about your father's final day?" she asked. Marcus nodded, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know. They walked to a quiet corner of the hospitality unit, where Lewis was waiting. He looked much better than yesterday, though still pale from his illness. "Marcus, sit down," Lewis said gently. "This is going to be hard to hear." Angela pulled out a tablet and showed Marcus a document dated 3 years ago. His father's final engineering report. "Your father wasn't supposed to be at the track that night," Lewis began. "He'd finished his work for the weekend and gone home to spend time with you and your mother." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Then why was he there?" "Because of me," Lewis said quietly. "I called him at home. I was struggling with the car setup for the next day's race. Nothing felt right. I was frustrated and I asked him to come back and help." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Lewis had called his father that night. "James didn't want to leave you," Angela continued, reading from the report. "But he knew how important the championship fight was. So he came back to the track and worked until 2 a.m. perfecting a new setup." Lewis's voice was barely a whisper. When he finished, he printed out all the data and started driving home. That's when he got the call about your accident. Marcus felt the world spinning again. "My accident? You'd been go-karting that afternoon with some friends," Angela said gently. "There was a crash. You were unconscious and bleeding. Your parents rushed to the hospital to be with you." Memories came flooding back. Memories Marcus had blocked out for 3 years. The wet track at the local Kulkik, taking a corner too fast. The barrier coming up fast. Then nothing until he woke up in the hospital to the worst news of his life. "They died because of me," Marcus whispered. "No," Lewis said firmly. "They died because they loved you. Because they would do anything to be there when you needed them." Angela showed him another part of the report. "Marcus, your father's final notes weren't just about car setups. Look at this." The screen showed a personal message James had typed before leaving the track. "Marcus had another karting accident today, but he's going to be okay. Doctors say he'll make a full recovery. When he wakes up, I want to tell him about real racing, about Formula One, about how his questions and passion inspire my work every day. The setup I created tonight was thinking about him, about the driver he could become if he chooses this path. Racing is dangerous, but it's also beautiful. If something happens to me, I want Marcus to know that his love of racing made me better at my job. And maybe someday, if he's ready, this setup will help him fly. For Marcus, when you're ready to fly, love, Dad." Marcus couldn't speak. His father had been thinking about him even while working late. Had created a setup specifically imagining Marcus as the driver. "There's more," Lewis said. "Your father's setup notes included something else. A special configuration that he said would only work in wet weather conditions at Silverstone." Marcus looked up through his tears. Outside, the rain was getting heavier. "The weather forecast for today's race is heavy rain," Angela said. "Marcus, your father designed a wet weather setup 3 years ago. He was preparing for exactly these conditions." Lewis leaned forward. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. What happened to your parents wasn't your fault. And it wasn't mine, even though I've blamed myself for 3 years. It was just a terrible accident. But if you hadn't crashed, your father still would have been working late. He loved his job. He loved helping the team win. And he loved knowing that his work might someday help his son achieve his dreams." Angela wiped her own eyes. "Marcus, your father's final gift wasn't just the car setup. It was the belief that you could handle anything racing through at you. Even this. The radio in the garage crackled with pre-race announcements. 2 hours until lights out. Time to start preparing. But first, Marcus had one more question. Does Nai know about why Mom and Dad were driving that night? She knows, Lewis said. We told her yesterday while you were testing the car. She said something I think you need to hear. Angela smiled through her tears. She said your parents would be proud that their last act was racing to help their son. And now their son is racing to honor their memory. Marcus stood up slowly. The weight of the truth was heavy, but it felt different now. Not like guilt, but like responsibility. Like purpose. I want to drive with Dad's wet weather setup, he said. Are you sure? Lewis asked. We've never tested it. We don't know how it will perform. Marcus looked at the rain hitting the windows harder now. Dad spent 3 years preparing for this race. For these conditions. For me. He paused and looked at both Lewis and Angela. I trust him. The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. Marcus was fitted for his racing suit one final time. The car was loaded with his father's special wet weather setup. The rain continued to fall, turning the track into a treacherous river of water and spray. As Marcus walked to the grid for the formation lap, 150,000 soaked fans rose to their feet in applause. The crowd knew his story now. The son of a Mercedes engineer, driving his father's setup, chasing an impossible dream. But Marcus wasn't thinking about the crowd. He was thinking about the message in his father's notes, about being ready to fly. The formation lap began with Marcus starting from the back of the grid, the safest position for his first Formula One race. But as he navigated the streaming circuit, he felt the car responding exactly as his father had intended. The rain was his friend. The setup was perfect. And for the first time since his parents died, Marcus felt like he was exactly where he belonged. As they lined up for the start, Lewis's voice came through his radio one final time before race control took over communications. Marcus, your father's final engineering report included one more thing. A prediction about what would happen if his setup worked perfectly in the rain at Silverstone. Marcus gripped his steering wheel as the formation lap ended, and the cars took their positions. What did he predict? Marcus asked. The lights began their sequence. 5 red lights. Building tension. He predicted that his son would show the world what a Chen could do when the conditions were impossible, and the stakes were highest. The final light went out. Lights out, and away we go. Marcus launched forward into the spray and chaos of his first Formula One race, carrying his father's hopes and his own dreams into the storm. The start of the British Grand Prix was chaos. 20 cars racing into turn 1 at 2,000 miles per hour, wheels inches apart, spray from the rain, making it almost impossible to see. Marcus stayed calm. From his position at the back of the grid, he could see the whole race unfolding in front of him. 3 cars spun at turn 3. Another went wide at turn 4. By the end of the first lap, Marcus had gained 6 positions without taking any risks. Well done, Marcus. Angela's voice came through his radio. You're up to 14th place. Just stay smooth and let the car do the work. But Marcus could feel something special happening. His father's wet weather setup was working exactly as designed. Where other cars slipped and slid on the streaming track, the Mercedes felt planted and secure. By lap 10, he was running in 8th place. The drivers in front of him were struggling with the conditions, but Marcus felt like he was driving on rails. Marcus, Angela's voice had excitement in it now. You're catching the cars ahead faster than we expected. Your lap times are amazing in these conditions. In the commentary booth, David Croft and Martin Brundle could barely contain their amazement. This is extraordinary, Croft said. Marcus Chen is driving like he's been in Formula One for years. Look at how he's handling these wet conditions. Martin, I've been commentating for 20 years, Brundle added, and I've never seen anything like this. That car setup is working perfectly. On lap 15, Marcus caught up to Carlos Sainz, who was struggling badly in the rain. Using his father's setup, Marcus could brake later and carry more speed through the corners. He passed Sainz on the inside of Brooklyn's corner with a move that had the crowd on their feet. 7th place. Angela announced, Marcus, you're in the points. But Marcus wasn't thinking about points. He was thinking about the car, about how perfectly it responded to every input. about how his father had somehow predicted exactly what would be needed for this race, these conditions, this moment. On lap 25, disaster struck for several experienced drivers. George Russell, his own teammate, hit a puddle at Copse Corner and spun into the gravel. Lando Norris aquaplaned at Stowe and needed a new front wing. Fernando Alonso went off at Club Corner trying to keep up with the pace. Marcus navigated through all the chaos like he could see the future. Every corner where others made mistakes, he found grip that shouldn't have existed. 5th place, Marcus. Angela's voice was getting more excited with each position gained. You're having the drive of a lifetime. In the Mercedes garage, Toto Wolff was watching the timing screens in disbelief. How is he doing this? These are some of the best drivers in the world, and a 12-year-old is making them look like beginners. Lewis, watching from the medical center, despite Dr. Mitchell's concerns, smiled through his weakness. James knew what he was doing. That setup is perfect for Marcus's driving style in these conditions. On lap 30, Marcus caught up to Max Verstappen, the world champion who was leading the race. For the first time, Marcus felt nervous. This wasn't just any driver, this was the best in the world. But as they approached Maggots and Beckett's complex, Marcus realized something incredible. His father's setup was giving him an advantage even over Max Verstappen. Where Max had to slow down for the wet corners, Marcus could maintain speed. Where Max's car wanted oversteer, Marcus's car stayed balanced and predictable. Marcus, Angela's voice was urgent now. You're catching Verstappen. This is it. This is your chance. The crowd could sense something special happening. 150,000 people were on their feet, cheering for the impossible story unfolding in front of them. As they started lap 35, Marcus was right behind Verstappen. The gap was less than a second. On the radio, team communications from other cars revealed the shock throughout the paddock. How is that kid keeping up with Max? Came one frustrated voice. That Mercedes setup is incredible in these conditions. Came another. Marcus waited for his moment. His father had taught him through engineering what Dave had taught him through practice. Patience, precision, and picking the perfect moment to strike. That moment came at Stowe Corner on lap 40. Marcus had studied Verstappen's line through practice and knew the world champion was taking a conservative approach in the wet conditions. Using his father's setup, Marcus could brake later and carry more speed through the turn. As they approached the corner, Marcus moved to the inside line and executed a pass that had commentators around the world speechless. Marcus Chen has taken the lead, David Croft shouted. A 12-year-old is leading the British Grand Prix. The roar from the crowd was deafening. Even through his helmet and earplugs, Marcus could hear 150,000 people cheering for him. But leading a race and winning a race are two different things. Marcus still had 10 laps to go with Max Verstappen right behind him, looking for any opportunity to reclaim first place. Marcus, Angela's voice was calm, despite the incredible situation. Remember what Lewis taught you. Drive your own race. Don't worry about who's behind you. As they began the final 10 laps, Marcus felt a strange calm come over him. This was exactly where his father had imagined him, leading a Formula One race at Silverstone, in the rain, using a setup designed specifically for this moment. But on lap 45, with 5 laps to go, Angela's voice brought news that changed everything. Marcus, there's something else your father wanted you to know. Something Lewis made me promise to tell you only if you were leading the race. Marcus was flying down the main straight at 200 miles per hour with Verstappen hunting him down. But he needed to know, what is it? Your father's engineering notes included one final message, something he wrote specifically for this scenario. Angela paused as Marcus navigated through the spray and pressure of leading his first Formula One race. He wrote, if Marcus is reading this, it means he's done something I always believed he could do but never dared to hope he would do. It means he's not just fast enough to compete with the best drivers in the world. It means he's found the courage to be better than them. Marcus felt tears mixing with the rain on his visor. His father had believed in this moment even when it seemed impossible. But there's more. Angela continued. Your father's final calculation wasn't just about car setup, it was about you. He predicted that if you ever got to this point, you'd face a choice. What choice? Marcus could see Verstappen in his mirrors, still hunting, still dangerous with 4 laps remaining. The choice between driving safe to keep what you have, or driving like a champion to earn what you deserve. As if summoned by her words, Verstappen made his move. The world champion pulled alongside Marcus on the Wellington Straight, using slipstream and superior racecraft to mount a serious challenge. They were wheel-to-wheel at 180 miles per hour in streaming rain. The most race driver in Formula One against a 12-year-old in his first race, Marcus had to decide, play it safe and probably lose the lead, or trust his father's setup and his own instincts to defend like a champion. He looked at the corner approaching fast and remembered his father's final words. "When you're ready to fly." Marcus was ready. He defended the inside line with precision and courage that had even Verstappen shaking his head in admiration. The move was perfect. Aggressive enough to keep the lead but clean enough to avoid contact. 3 laps to go, Angela announced. "Marcus, you're driving like your father always knew you could." But as they started the final 3 laps, the rain began to fall even harder. The track was becoming dangerous. Several backmarker cars had already spun off. This was the ultimate test of his father's engineering and his own courage. Marcus pressed on. Every corner a battle between speed and safety. Every straight a chance for Verstappen to mount another attack. With 2 laps to go, Marcus led by 1.2 seconds. With 1 lap to go, the gap was down to 0.8 seconds. As they took the white flag for the final lap, Angela's voice came through one last time. "Marcus, your father's final engineering note had a prediction about this moment. About what would happen if you made it to the last lap leading at Silverstone." Marcus was navigating the most important lap of his life. But he had to know. What did he predict? He predicted that his son would find a speed that even he couldn't calculate. A speed that comes not from engineering, but from the heart. Marcus pressed the accelerator and found exactly that speed. The speed of a champion. Marcus found the speed his father had predicted. Not from the engine or the setup, but from somewhere deep inside himself. A place where fear and doubt had lived for 3 years. Now replaced by pure determination. The final lap of the British Grand Prix became the longest minute of Marcus's life. Every corner was a battle. Every straight was a chance for Verstappen to mount one last attack. At Kopp's corner, Verstappen pulled alongside again. The world champion was giving everything he had, using every trick learned from years of racing. But Marcus held his line with the precision of someone who understood that this moment had been written 3 years ago in his father's engineering notes. Down the back straight, Marcus could feel Verstappen's car in his slipstream. The Mercedes was fast, but the Red Bull had different strengths. This would be close. Final sector, Marcus. Angela's voice was tight with emotion. "Whatever happens, you've already made history." But Marcus wasn't thinking about history. He was thinking about his father's hands on these same steering controls when he was designing the setup. About his mother rushing through the rain to be with him in the hospital. About Nai working double shifts so he could have go-kart lessons. At Maggots and Beckett's, the complex series of corners where his father's setup gave him the biggest advantage, Marcus pulled away from Verstappen by half a second, then a full second. The crowd could sense victory approaching. 150,000 people were on their feet, screaming for the impossible fairy tale to have its perfect ending. "Club corner, Marcus," Angela announced. Last corner before the finish straight. Marcus navigated the final turn with mathematical precision. His father's setup allowed him to carry more speed than should be possible. As he straightened onto the finish straight, Verstappen was 1.5 seconds behind and running out of track. The checkered flag appeared ahead. Marcus could see it through the rain and spray. The most famous flag in motorsport waiting for him. 200 meters, Marcus," Angela said, her voice breaking with emotion. Marcus pressed the accelerator one final time and crossed the finish line as the winner of the British Grand Prix. The roar from the crowd was unlike anything Silverstone had ever heard. Commentators around the world were speechless. In the Mercedes garage, grown men and women were crying openly. "Marcus Chen wins the British Grand Prix." David Croft's voice echoed around the world, 12 years old. In his first Formula One race. "This is the greatest story in the history of motorsport." Marcus coasted around the track, trying to process what had just happened. His radio crackled with voices congratulating him, but everything sounded distant and dreamlike. "Marcus." Angela's voice cut through the noise. "Bring the car home. You're a Grand Prix winner." As Marcus drove slowly back toward the pit lane, Lewis Hamilton appeared at the pit wall, despite Dr. Mitchell's protests. The 7-time world champion was standing in the rain, applauding as Marcus brought the car home. Marcus parked the Mercedes in the #1 position and sat in the cockpit for a long moment. He could hear the crowd cheering, could see photographers and camera crews running toward him, could feel the magnitude of what he'd accomplished. But mostly, he felt his father's presence. Like James Chen was there with him, proud and amazed at what his engineering and his son's courage had achieved together. Marcus climbed out of the car and immediately found himself surrounded by people. Angela reached him first, pulling him into a hug that lifted him off the ground. "You did it," she whispered in his ear. "Your father would be so proud." Lewis Hamilton appeared next, still weak from his illness, but determined to be there for this moment. The embrace between the 7-time champion and the 12-year-old winner was captured by photographers and would become one of the most iconic images in sports history. "How does it feel to be the youngest winner in Formula One history?" Lewis asked. Marcus looked around at all the faces staring at him with wonder and respect. Team members who had worked with his father, officials who had never seen anything like this, media from around the world documenting the impossible. "It feels like Dad is here with me," Marcus said simply. Toto Wolff pushed through the crowd with a huge smile and tears in his eyes. "Marcus, on behalf of Mercedes and your father's memory, welcome to the family." Officially this time. The next hour was a blur of interviews, photographs, and celebrations. Marcus was weighed, a requirement after every race, tested for illegal substances, also required, and officially confirmed as the winner. During the podium ceremony, Marcus stood on the top step while the British national anthem played. He thought about his father designing this moment in engineering calculations, about his mother rushing through the rain to be with him, about Nai watching on television in the garage. When they handed him the trophy, Marcus held it high and looked directly at the camera. "This is for Mum and Dad," he said, "and for everyone who told me I was too small, too young, or too different to achieve my dreams." The champagne celebration was awkward since Marcus was too young to drink. But the photographers got their shots of him spraying sparkling apple juice while standing between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. After the ceremony, Marcus found Nai waiting in the garage. She had tears streaming down her face and her hands pressed to her heart. "Marcus," she said in Mandarin, then switched to English so everyone could understand. "Your parents are watching from heaven. They are so proud." The hug between grandmother and grandson lasted a long time while the Mercedes team gave them space for their private moment. Later that evening, after most of the media had left and the crowds had gone home, Marcus sat in the garage with Angela and Lewis. The three of them looked at the winning car, still dirty from the race, still carrying the setup that James Chen had created 3 years earlier. "There's one more thing your father wanted you to have," Angela said. She handed Marcus a sealed envelope that had been locked in the team's safe since the day James died. Inside was a letter in his father's handwriting and a set of blueprints for a racing car design. Marcus read the letter aloud. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, it means you found your way to racing just like we always dreamed. But more than that, it means you found the strength to overcome whatever took me away from you. This car design isn't just engineering. It's every dream I had for your future built into carbon fiber and metal. I designed it specifically for you when you turn 16, assuming you choose to continue racing. But knowing you, you'll probably want to modify it and make it better. That's what good engineers do. They build on the work of those who came before them. Remember, racing isn't about being the fastest. It's about finding out who you really are when everything seems impossible. You found that out today. I love you always, Dad." The blueprints showed a Formula 2 car designed specifically for Marcus's size and driving style. Every measurement, every angle, every component had been calculated with Marcus in mind. Lewis studied the blueprints with amazement. "Your father was planning years ahead. This design is incredible. What does this mean?" Marcus asked. Angela smiled. "It means when you're ready for the next step in your racing career, your father already built you the perfect car to take it." Marcus looked at the blueprints, then at the race car that had just won the British Grand Prix, then at the two people who had helped make his impossible dream come true. "I want to establish a racing program for kids who can't afford it," Marcus said suddenly. "Using the prize money from today, kids like me who have the talent but not the resources." Lewis and Angela exchanged a look of pride and surprise. Kids like you who need someone to believe in them, Lewis said. I think that's exactly what your father would want. As they prepared to leave the garage, Marcus took one last look at the car that had carried him to victory. His father's engineering, his own courage, Angela's belief, Lewis's mentorship, Nai's support, Dave's training. It had taken all of them to make the impossible possible. But as they walked toward the car park, Angela pulled Marcus aside for one final conversation. Marcus, there's something else we need to discuss. Something about your future. Marcus looked at her curiously. That drive today wasn't just impressive for a 12-year-old. It was impressive, period. The FIA wants to talk to you about a formal development program. Other teams are already asking about your availability. Marcus felt overwhelmed again. I just want to go home and hug Nai and eat her dumplings. Angela laughed. You can do that too. But Marcus, what you accomplished today has started conversations at the highest levels of motorsport. People want to know what comes next for Marcus Chen. Marcus looked back at the Silverstone circuit where his father had worked, where he had broken through, where his family's racing legacy had finally come full circle. What comes next, Marcus said, is making sure other kids get the same chance I got today. As they drove away from Silverstone, Marcus held his father's letter and his mother's memory and his grandmother's love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. But today, he had flown. 6 months after Silverstone, Marcus Chen stood in the pit lane at Donington Park watching a group of young drivers take their first laps in go-karts. The Marcus Chen Foundation had officially opened 3 weeks ago, funded by his British Grand Prix prize money and donations from around the world. The first class included 12 kids aged 8 to 14. Some came from single-parent families. Others lived with grandparents like Marcus had. A few were refugees who had arrived in England with nothing but dreams and determination. But they all had one thing in common: raw racing talent that needed nurturing. Marcus, look at that girl in cart number 7. Dave Morrison called out. She's got the same natural feel you had when you first started. Marcus watched Zara Okafor, a 10-year-old from inner-city Manchester whose mother cleaned offices at night to support them. Zara was taking corners with confidence that reminded Marcus of himself 3 years ago. She reminds me of someone else too, said a familiar voice behind him. Marcus turned to see Lewis Hamilton walking down the pit lane. Lewis looked healthier now, fully recovered from his food poisoning, but he'd announced his retirement from Formula One the week after Silverstone. He said Marcus's story had reminded him what racing was really about. How's the program going? Lewis asked, watching the young drivers navigate the track. Better than we hoped, Marcus said. We've got 30 kids on the waiting list, and 5 more tracks want to partner with us. The Marcus Chen Foundation had grown beyond anything Marcus had imagined. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had left Mercedes to become the program's medical director. Angela Rodriguez had taken a sabbatical to help design the curriculum. Even Toto Wolff served on the advisory board. But the most surprising support had come from Max Verstappen. The world champion had been so impressed by Marcus's drive at Silverstone that he donated enough money to fund 10 scholarships. That Verstappen kid gave me the best race of my career, Max had said in the press conference announcing his donation. Any program that can develop talent like that deserves support. Marcus still lived with Nai in their small flat in Towcester. He attended regular school Monday through Friday and worked with the foundation on weekends. The only major change was that Mercedes had hired him as a junior development driver, which meant testing cars and providing feedback to engineers. It also meant a salary that had allowed Nai to cut back her hours at the care home. Marcus, she'd said when the Mercedes contract arrived, your father would be amazed. Not just at the racing, but at the young man you've become. As they watched the foundation kids complete their session, Lewis pulled Marcus aside. I have news, Lewis said. The FIA has officially changed the age requirements for Formula One. Because of your success at Silverstone, they're creating a new pathway for exceptional young drivers. Marcus felt mixed emotions about this. Part of him was proud that his story had opened doors for others, but another part worried about kids being pushed too hard, too young. What kind of pathway, he asked. Special licenses for drivers under 18 who can demonstrate exceptional ability and maturity, complete with mandatory education programs, psychological support, and family involvement requirements. Lewis smiled at Marcus's serious expression. Don't worry. They learned from your experience. No more emergency situations. Everything will be planned and supported properly. Three young drivers approached them nervously. Marcus recognized them from the foundation program. Mr. Chen, said Ahmed Hassan, a 13-year-old whose family had moved to England from Syria. Could you look at our lap times? We think we're getting faster. Marcus studied their timing sheets seriously. Ahmed had improved by 2 seconds since his first session. Zara was consistently the fastest in her age group. Tommy Mackenzie, a 12-year-old from Glasgow whose father was unemployed, showed the kind of racecraft that couldn't be taught. These are excellent improvements, Marcus told them. But remember what Dave always says, lap times don't make you a good driver. Respect for other drivers and understanding the sport makes you a good driver. Will we ever get to drive real race cars like you did? Zara asked. Marcus knelt down so he was at eye level with the three young hopefuls. If you work hard, stay in school, and remember why you love racing, then yes, maybe someday you'll have your own chance to fly. After the kids returned to their families, Marcus walked to the corner of the paddock where a memorial plaque had been installed. It read, Dr. James Chen Memorial Track, where dreams take flight. Marcus placed a fresh photo next to the plaque. It showed him on the Silverstone podium, holding his trophy, with his father's engineering notes visible in the background. I kept my promise, Dad, he said quietly. I'm helping other kids get their chance. Angela approached with a tablet showing the foundation's latest statistics. In 6 months, they'd helped 47 young drivers get started in motorsport. 3 had already moved up to regional competitions. 2 had caught the attention of professional teams. Marcus, there's something else, Angela said. The British Racing Drivers Club wants to offer you honorary membership. You'd be the youngest member in their history. Marcus looked surprised. What does that mean? It means they recognize you as a professional racing driver, not just a kid who got lucky once. The offer was flattering, but Marcus had been thinking about his future differently lately. I want to study engineering, he said suddenly, like Dad did. I want to understand how to make cars faster and safer. Lewis, who had been listening, smiled broadly. Cambridge University called last week, he said. They're offering you early admission to study aerodynamic engineering. You could start classes part-time while continuing your racing development. Marcus felt his heart race. Cambridge was where his father had dreamed of studying before family responsibilities changed his path. Really? Really? Your story has inspired people in ways you don't realize yet, Marcus. Universities, sponsors, teams. Everyone wants to be part of your journey. As they prepared to leave Donington Park, Marcus took one last look at the young drivers packing up their equipment. Some would discover that racing wasn't for them. Others would find different dreams to chase. But a few, maybe just 1 or 2, would find the same magic that Marcus had found. The feeling of being perfectly connected to a machine moving at impossible speeds. The joy of competition that pushed them to be better than they thought possible. Marcus, Nai called from the car park. Time to go home. I'm making dumplings for dinner. Marcus laughed. Some things never changed, no matter how famous you became. But as he walked toward the car, Dave Morrison handed him an envelope. This came for you today, Dave said, from the Ferrari Driver Academy. Marcus opened the envelope and read the letter inside. Ferrari was offering him a place in their young driver program, with a pathway to Formula One by age 16. Similar letters had arrived from McLaren, Red Bull, and Alpine over the past few months. Every team wanted the boy who had won at Silverstone, but Marcus folded the letter and put it in his pocket without much excitement. Not interested? Lewis asked, having seen the Ferrari logo. Maybe someday, Marcus said. But right now, I'm exactly where I need to be. He looked back at the track where young drivers were still practicing, at the memorial plaque honoring his father, at the foundation buildings where dreams were being nurtured. Dad didn't just design a car setup for me, Marcus continued. He designed a whole life, racing, engineering, helping others. I want to build that life properly, one piece at a time. As they drove back to Towcester, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought him here. A desperate break-in to see his hero, a chance meeting with Angela, Lewis's illness, creating an impossible opportunity, his father's hidden legacy, providing the tools for success, but mostly, He thought about the message his father had left. Racing isn't about being the fastest. It's about finding out who you really are when everything seems impossible. Marcus had found out who he was that day at Silverstone. He was Dr. James Chen's son, Angela's protege, Lewis's inspiration, Nai's pride and joy. But more than that, he was someone who understood that the greatest victories weren't measured in lap times or trophies. They were measured in opportunities created for others, in dreams made possible, in young drivers who would one day find their own chances to fly. 6 months ago, Marcus Chen had been a desperate fan sneaking into a paddock just to see his hero. Today, he was the hero that other kids dreamed of becoming, and tomorrow he would help them find their own ways to soar. The Marcus Chen Foundation was just the beginning. Cambridge University would teach him the engineering skills his father never got to share. Professional racing would test his limits and expand his abilities. But the lesson he'd learned from that impossible day at Silverstone would guide everything. When you find your chance to fly, make sure you use it to lift others up with you. As their car pulled into the driveway of the small flat in Towster, Marcus saw neighbors waving from their windows. Mrs. Patterson from next door had put up a congratulations banner. The local newspaper had framed his victory photo in their window. He was still the same Marcus Chen who helped Nai with groceries and did his homework at the kitchen table. But he was also the boy who had shown the world that impossible dreams could come true with the right combination of talent, opportunity, and people who believed in you. As Nai unlocked the front door, she turned to Marcus with the same loving smile she'd given him every day since his parents died. "Come on, my champion," she said in Mandarin. "Time for dumplings." Marcus followed her inside, already looking forward to tomorrow's challenges and the chance to help other young dreamers discover that they too were ready to fly. And that was the end of Marcus Chen's incredible journey from desperate fan to Formula One champion. A story that proves sometimes the most impossible dreams can come true when courage meets opportunity and the right people believe in you. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. It's amazing to connect with dreamers from all around the world. If this story inspired you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for many more incredible stories like this one. We share tales of ordinary people achieving extraordinary things, because everyone deserves to believe that their dreams are possible. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Marcus's remind us that kindness, determination, and supporting each other's dreams can literally change lives. By sharing this story, you're helping spread that message of hope and possibility to someone who might really need to hear it today. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're always ready to fly. You just need to find the courage to try. Until next time, keep dreaming big.